Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Wallen. I'm with the Dell Edge Computing Group. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about edge data management and why it's important and what customers need to be doing about this. A quick agenda. We're just going to go quickly over the definition of edge data management, what it is, what this means, why this is important today, and what customers should be doing about it. So, before we get into edge data management, I just want to give you a definition for the edge, because that's been pretty contested here at VMworld with a number of customers I've been speaking to. And the way Dell defines the edge, it is the place where data is acted on closest to its point of creation. So as customers see more and more edge devices, phones, wearables, IoT devices, and that data volume goes up more and more, it's going to become much more important to bring compute as close as possible to that point of creation so that customers or so that internal customers can be able to act on it. And edge data management is the ability to manage that data that is being aggregated from those edge IoT devices and put it into a usable format in context for applications to be able to use. So why is this important now is because today we're really only seeing about 10% of data created at the edge actually being acted on and used either in the edge or in the cloud. A lot of this is going directly into long-term storage. A lot of this data is being recorded and processed and thrown away. We've actually seen a number of customers have significant problems with securing business actions and business use cases for the data that they're collecting. They understand that they need to be collecting data. I don't want to use the Mark Andreessen quote here, but data is the new oil, and customers believe this is true, and the business believes this is true, but they don't really have anything to do with this yet, and so they haven't found yet how to act on this data at site. But Gartner sees that over the next 5 years, this is going to go from 10% to 75%. And that 75% number actually means a number of things. Not only that 75% of data created at the edge will be acted on the edge, but that 75% of data will be coming from the edge in aggregate. So IT decision makers really need to consider this as part of their overall priorities. And the other thing that this means is that while the growth of data is exploding, the cost of compute is also coming down. So the ability to move compute closer to where the data is being created is a much more important differentiator than the ability to get the data into the cloud for centralized processing. So that 800% growth of applications by the edge was from a Vance and Bourne study, and this really just compounds the need for IT professionals to be able to understand how to manage edge devices and edge compute devices in order to stay competitive. So what does edge data management mean? Well, there's obviously a number of challenges with managing data, and especially at the edge, there's a number of additional requirements on how you can use this data and the type of data that's coming in from the edge that makes it a little bit important. The first one we'll talk about is the ultra-low latency requirement. One of the reasons why you would move your compute closer to where the data is being created is because you can't afford long-term SLAs of moving it into the cloud, putting it in context, putting aggregations on it and making a decision, and then moving that decision back to the edge. Oftentimes you're dealing with edge processes or cameras and mechanical devices that need to be acting within sub-millisecond or several millisecond response times, and so having that ultra-low latency is going to be really important. Optimal use of resources, obviously one of the very important ones, as compute is still expensive, even though the cost relatively is coming down, and continuous availability. So we all know about high availability and 9 nines and 6 nines of performance in terms of your applications, but continuous availability is really the next step, especially as you integrate into business decision processes at the edge. And all of these come together with a containerization platform is really where we see there's obviously many technologies that are needed to manage your edge data, but we're just going to be focusing on container orchestration platforms today. Some of the other challenges that aren't listed here that are important for the edge or that could be providing limitations for the edge are bandwidth. Obviously, if you're running streaming cameras at the edge in a retail location or security location, you can't beam 4K footage back to AWS in order to store. You need to be able to store that locally and act on it locally. Security is a very big concern. When you have these devices sitting outside of the data center, you can't employ traditional firewalls and traditional security protocols. You need to embrace trustless or zero trust security for all incoming devices. And limited physical access. When devices are at the edge, oftentimes there is no IT person on site full-time managing these devices to keep them online. So it's going to be important to consider as well. So Let's start on the first challenge in terms of ultra-low latency. Now, it's tempting to think that Kubernetes is the technology that will solve all of your problems, but obviously there's a lot of things that Kubernetes can't solve here, and especially as you get into management costs and reliability costs, it can do a lot for you, but it'll leave a lot to be desired. And today I know that there's over a dozen ways to deploy Kubernetes, but when you're at the edge, in order to get maximum performance and to keep those SLAs very, very tight, I always recommend that customers deploy on bare metal directly. So this gives you the advantage of a significantly lower cost, less management overhead in terms of the number of software packages that you need to manage, and of course get better performance. Now, Tanzu is the other opportunity here, and I'm sure some VMware folks, if they're listening, they'd probably pull my mic if I said no hypervisor and run on bare metal. Tanzu has actually had a number of performance benefits in the stack that can get you close to near bare metal performance in most use cases to get you exactly where you need to be. So both Tanzu and Kubernetes can help you achieve lower latencies, but obviously, unless you're deploying with Tanzu, I would always recommend to deploy directly on bare metal. In terms of optimizing your resources, there's a number of ways that customers are going to be able to do this. And this is not an edge-related problem. In order to optimize your resources, this has been a problem in the data center as long as computers have been existing, and faster queuing on mainframes have always been there. And this is a long-term problem, and there's not going to be a short-term solution for it. And as far as I can see, there's primarily two strategies at the edge for doing this. And the first is to use synthetic workloads in order to simulate your application, simulate your data streams in order to optimize the types of resources. This has the drawback of being slightly inaccurate as you're using non-production data in order to simulate your workloads, while using production data can give you much more accurate results, but is cumbersome to move around, is cumbersome to test, and is difficult to get in the quantities that you need in order to be able to test properly. And that's why we recommend a hybrid approach and using some type of AI, ML algorithms to be able to synthesize your synthetic workloads into projected workloads and either some of the digital twin technologies and small amounts of production workloads and test workloads in order to be able to continuously test and optimize your workloads running at the edge. The last area we'll touch on is in terms of continuous availability. So continuous availability that we define as the combination of high availability with continuous operations. So at the edge, it's simply not enough to keep your applications running at a 99% level. You need to make sure that the upgrades and the administration tasks that you're running aren't disrupting the actual business applications that are running. These are applications that are informing business decisions actively, and so VMware does a really good job of this, especially with things like VxRail and VMware Tanzu that can maintain high availability across multiple clusters without disrupting business operations as you perform your operations tasks. This is a high-level architecture of how we see edge data management. And this is much more of a reference architecture than a specific architecture, but it's important to have a number of objects in here. A convergence platform specifically regards of how to unify the framework with IoT devices, where you have sensors and cameras and all of these things. You need some type of platform to be able to communicate. An ability to collect all the image and video data and inferencing later to be able to act on this. And we pull all this together at Dell, we call it the streaming data platform. So this uses Pravega as the data collector. You can think of Pravega as our proprietary version of Kafka. I'll say it's better than Kafka, but that's because I make it. It's important to have a data sanity check and correction mechanism when you're dealing with projects at the edge. So often, perfect data does not exist, and data will often come in incomplete or out of context or with missing fields, and it's important to have a mechanism inside of your system to be able to identify those, correct those, and put them in context together. This is something that's part of the streaming data platform, and we strongly recommend that customers consider what to do with aberrant data as it comes into the system. Using a data store as the place where the data sits to be able to act on and put in context in real time. And then, of course, filtering and transforming the data to be able to move it into long-term storage based on your proprietary compliance. So I won't go too far into this, but I'll say just overall that it's important to first start with a containerized approach when dealing with edge data management at the edge. we recommend some type of streaming data platform that can take in these high volumes of data that are coming in quickly and rapidly from the edge, and it's important to have the ability to contextualize these and act on them in real time. So having some type of data cleaning mechanism to make sure that your data is consistent and whole and is able to be properly contextualized for business purposes. So that will regard my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'll happy to take you after the session. But thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of VMworld, or VMware Explore.